Hey, teachers and parents. So I'm so excited for this episode. So today we are talking to Virginia Koch, who is a faculty member at the University of Central Florida in Orlando. She teaches leadership development with the Lead Scholars Academy, and she is also the founder of Knots Untied Coaching, which helps Catholics overcome mindset barriers, succeed in college and beyond, and grow in their faith. Virginia, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you?
Well, thanks. I'm doing great. Loving life in Florida. It's wonderful. Thanks.
Amazing. I love it. Yeah, my brother and sister-in-law live and my nephews live in Florida, so I get to go there every now and again. So it's fantastic to see. So tell us, like, how did your teaching journey actually begin?
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be a teacher. I would make my younger brothers and sisters be my students and role playing being a teacher. But it really wasn't until I was about my senior year of college that I realized rather than going into archaeology, which I had been studying at the time, I would go into student personnel services. It's now called higher education administration.
Okay.
But my career started off in housing and residence life. So I worked with all the students living on campus and taught life skills, taught, how to get along with your roommate, all those sorts of things outside the classroom.
Yeah.
But I also had the opportunity to work with resident assistants, the students that are working on campus in the residence halls, and other student leaders to teach them how to help others. And did that for many, many years. So it wasn't until recently, after I got my PhD in higher education, that I started doing more teaching in the actual classroom. And that's what I do now at Lead Scholars Academy and at the University of Central Florida. I've only been there a few years, but I've really enjoyed it. And I get to talk about leadership every day, which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's such an important skill for moving forward. And, I think in businesses especially because it's so important to move away from the idea of the management side and like don't be a manager, be a leader, right? Like try to bring out the
Yes.
best in your people, try to grow them and not just kind of dictate to them. So I think it's fantastic what you're
Right,
doing.
right. And
Um,
and we work with students in every discipline. So they're going to be our future engineers and
yeah.
teachers and physical therapists and you name it. So they can apply this to any career that they have.
Absolutely. And also I think leadership is so crucial because the first person you have to lead is you, right?
Yes.
And I think we sometimes forget that, right? Like if we can be disciplined in leading ourselves, then it helps to build those skills to lead others and to help them,
Absolutely.
right, grow as people and as, employees or, other managers or other entrepreneurs even. So I know, with all the kind of issues that are facing schools at the moment, and you are now getting the students that are coming out of high school into higher education, what have you noticed are some of the main issues facing students today as they are entering higher education?
Yeah. Well, even before they get to us, they're facing, how do I pay for college? What do I want to study? Am I prepared enough? Um, all of those things, accessibility. Is this place going to support me if I have a disability or I have some kind of neurodiversity? We're seeing more students with autism on the spectrum and those sorts of things. So, um, you know, those are kind of factors going into college, but when they get there, it's how can I find my people? Who's my community? Who's going to support me? You know, uh, that sense of belonging is really critical. That students, if they don't have that, their mental health can start to wane a little bit. And we know that age group of 18 to 21-year-olds is a lot of times when some mental health diagnoses will start to appear if it hasn't already. And so it can really be a downward spiral for students if they're, all of a sudden, just experiencing anxiety or depression or loneliness. That of course in college there's all kinds of substance abuse, substance use, let's say, and abuse. And then a lot of suicide ideation can happen in college, stemming from depression and anxiety. But it's a real issue for a lot of students that, managing their all of those things, maybe finances is still a thread through college, and now they have to work and go to school. And that's just the traditional student. The non-traditional student, like moms returning back to school, or
Right.
first generation students that have nobody in their family has gone to college, so they can't really emotionally support them, because they just didn't ever have that experience. So
they don't know what to say or what advice to give, right? And that doesn't even include like the academic side of things. Like now you have all the work piled on top, like your subjects and your projects and your exams and all of that.
Right.
No,
and like you said, managing yourself, time management, and how you spend your days. Do you know truly how to study? That was something that I thought I knew going into college, and I got blown away because I was like, maybe I don't really know so much about what I'm doing here. I need to seek out help. And I will say resources today are much better than they used to be, in previous generations of students going to college. So it's just a matter of tapping into those resources, which if parents aren't aware of them for some reason, they can't even recommend to their students. And sometimes we don't even recognize it's an issue until it's too late. They failed a class, or they, have other things going on where they are too stressed out to even maybe stay in school.
Exactly.
So there's a lot going on in the college years.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine. So do you think that there's anything essentially that like the students or even the parents should learn or work on before they enter higher education, before they enter college? Like what are some things they could do to kind of prepare them for moving into this space?
Well, realistically, I think they need to look at their student and what the student's needs are. If they're one of those neurodivergent people that I mentioned, how can they manage their own medications, their own doctor's appointments? If they have other health issues that they need to manage. A lot of students come to college with, long-term conditions like diabetes that they need to actively manage, and to learn to do that independently. So I can't tell you how many students I've talked to that don't know how to cook. They don't know. Mom has always been the one to take them to their doctor's appointments. They really struggle with just managing themselves as a young adult.
Yeah.
Because mom or dad has always been there for them, or they've just never managed it well, and they've been kind of, fumbling along as they go. So, developing those skills before they get to college, that last year or two before they go away, let's say to college, or if they're staying home and living with the family, but they're now a freshman, sophomore commuting to campus, let's say, they need to be doing a lot of those things on their own. And mom and dad are not the virtual assistant for them. They need to go on and take on some of those adult responsibilities.
I think communication is a big one. I think making your child, I say child, but like making your young, older teenager, young adult, order the pizza, make a dentist appointment, talk to someone in the shop, or ask where something is, or, ask for help with something, because you don't really realize when you get onto a campus how many strangers you have to talk to. to ask things, and you're like, but my mom always did this, or my dad always did this, and now it's like, well, sorry, honey, like now you're doing it, so so practice it beforehand. I know when I worked, I guess because I'm like Gen X, when I worked at a school, all the millennial teachers are like, no, Marissa, you call, you do the calling. If we had to book something, they're like, Marissa, you just call.
And learning to problem solve is huge. I see a lot of our students, sometimes they'll come to a dead end and they won't know what to do. and the lifeline is call mom.
Yeah.
No. What else could you do? What can you do to advocate for yourself? Like you said, to ask those important questions. And they can be really simple, but there's, like I said, there's tons of resources on a college campus. There's the staff that work in the residence halls. There's, now some colleges are hiring coaches just to work with students for academic success. There's all sorts of people available to, college, campus counseling centers have amazing staff that love working with college students.
Sure.
So tapping into all those resources can not only save you money and time because they're right there on campus, but it can also, make that investment in college something that you can succeed at. You want to invest in yourself and take advantage of all those resources.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, with the problem solving, never like get into that mindset that nothing is final, right?
Yes.
Learn how to ask yourself questions. Learn how to be like, okay, who could I ask? What could I do? What have I done that didn't work? But could I try it a different way? Could I explain the situation to someone who might be able to see it a different way and give me advice, right? Don't ever, assume that something is final, because 99% of the time there is a solution, right?
Yes.
So.
And you just need to get creative.
Yeah.
I work with some amazing people that are so creative, and when students come to them with a problem, they give them 10 possible options, and the student just will go and start working on one of them. So sometimes it's just a matter of deciding, this is what I'm going to do. It may not work out, but I'm going to be okay with that. And if it doesn't, I'll pivot to something else. So, having that resilient attitude can make a huge difference in their success.
Yes. Yeah. And I think leading on to also like that growth mindset, right? That nothing like, let me try again, or let me see if there's another way, or it's not over yet. I can't do this yet, but I'm going to try. Right.
Right.
And
yet
so
is a powerful word.
Yes. The power of yet. Was it? I can't remember. I don't want to missay the author of that book, but there is a book, The Power of Yet.
Power of yes.
Yeah. Is it The Power of Yes? No,
YES. But I would also say YET is also powerful.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, the power of yet growth mindset. I'll have to figure out, we'll have to maybe put it.
Yeah, maybe I'll write that book if there's not one out there.
Yeah, that's good. You should definitely. So that kind of leads me into the whole idea of social anxiety, because the whole term of social anxiety, which I had never heard of even 5 years ago, really, could be very well be out for a long time. But when I was younger, you might have been experiencing it, but it wasn't like, it didn't have a term.
Yeah. No.
So I'm curious, like, how do you exactly explain it? And what are some strategies or tips that you might use with students who are experiencing it?
Yes. So I see this a lot. It shows up in different ways. It's really stemming from irrational fear, or just as general self-consciousness or embarrassment that people have, that I'm not good enough. It, stems back to some really negative self-talk. No one cares what I have to say. People will make fun of me if I show up as my real self. I have to put on a mask and not let people see the real me, because maybe they won't accept me as the real me. So a lot of negative self-talk involved in that. One of the things you don't realize is college is such a social place. And I remember my brother visited me one time on campus, and we were walking around. He's like, everybody seems so happy here. and it struck me because I never really thought about it like that. Yeah. But generally I think, college students are a happy lot. They're young and carefree, and they got the whole world ahead of them in some ways. But also there's a lot of that social anxiety, that fear of putting themselves out there. And again, it kind of stems back to some negative self-talk, but to kind of combat that, you need to slow down, write down those thoughts, kind of pick them apart. Is it really true 100% of the time? And, why do I have those negative thoughts? And really trying to make the irrational rational, which often means debunking some of that, and recognizing that college is a social place. I need to work together in groups with other people for class projects. I need to know the people down the hall from me, get to know my roommate, have interactions with faculty members, which is sometimes even scary for the faculty member, not let alone the student, but having those intergenerational conversations about areas of mutual interest, huge for a young adult to learn. And so, putting themselves out there, and for us as educators, I think it's a matter of being open and responsive and letting them kind of fumble through their question a few times, and they'll start to really work on getting better at those interactions, but being really supportive and recognizing when somebody does have that extra deficit of social anxiety is really helpful, because we can help them work through it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do with my coaching, but I will say in general, all of us in the college setting are trying to help students because we realize it's such a problem.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just feel like taking students and being like, just keep trying, like you'll find your tribe, right? There's people out here that are meant to, impact your life in incredible ways, and don't close yourself off to that. And sometimes listen to your intuition, right? Like if someone is kind of says, oh, I like this person, then be like, okay, this is the person that you should maybe keep talking to, and you want to go for coffee, or, see what happens. So I think it's amazing to think how that is such a skill, right? Like actually bridging that gap with other people, but just don't give up. Just keep trying. And it's okay if someone doesn't want to be friends with you too. Like that's 100% okay.
Yes.
It's don't take it personal.
Exactly. There's plenty of other people out there. And, one of the things we've started teaching our students, we have we have a 2-year program. So end of sophomore year, they're ready to graduate from our program and move on to other things at the university. But we're teaching them about networking. We had a networking event last week with some alumni, and how do you walk into a room and start meeting strangers who are older and have all this experience, and how do you even get to know them and have the courage to go and shake their hand? And so we are doing more workshops about how to go about doing that.
Brilliant.
Giving yourself that self-confidence to walk into the room and walk out with some new connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And getting them to talk about themselves and give you some advice, maybe, is always, I think, a good way. I always try to get the other person to talk about themselves. People like to do that.
Yeah. They love it.
So with your leadership program, which sounds so incredible, considering that you've been teaching it for a bit of time, has anything changed? Have the way you've taught the leadership program changed at all over the years, or have you added or taken away in any way?
Yeah, I think a lot of the fundamentals have been consistent, and we, at different points in time, we've done different things. So, for example, we always teach about interpersonal skills and communication and conflict management and listening skills. Those things are timeless. Some of the things that we started adding in the 90s, which, is continued in different formats to today, is how do you work with people that are different from you? How do you become aware of your own culture versus the culture of others? And how do you be culturally sensitive? Those are things that we've gotten better at talking about, I think, and learning how to teach students those skills. We also now have much more of an emphasis on mental health.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yes.
We have to be very explicit when teaching peer mentors and students in general about, there's a point where you can help someone, and then also a point where you need to refer. And you can always give hope, like explain that you care for the person and you want them to succeed, and you're glad that they're alive and that they're here on this earth right now. And there's resources to help them. So there's a lot of really great training that's available that helps students with those sorts of things that didn't exist years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
And yeah. So I love that aspect of it. Something we used to talk a lot about in the 90s was eating disorders. I just saw a student on campus the other day that was so thin, and it's not something that we talk about as much anymore, but they're still there. They're still struggling. And so I think, recognizing that students come in with many different types of needs, and they deal with things very differently. A lot of students from alcoholic families, they should not be exposed to alcohol in any kind of setting, partly because they're underage, but also that it's not good for them. It's not a habit that they want to get into. So, alcohol has been a thread throughout college. Anytime I've worked with college students, that's talking about that and other substance abuse. It's really easy to find things that are bad for you. Pornography is another one that is huge, and gambling, all of the online vices that you can kind of delve into privately, and no one will know that you're doing those things until you find yourself in real trouble.
Right. And all of those can turn into addictions, right? So you have to make students aware that, when you have an addiction like that, it can prevent you from living your best life, being your best self, really going and to find your purpose and move forward as, this incredible version of you, because you have this addiction. Eating as well, can be classified, can turn into an addiction. So I think that is definitely so important, because sometimes it just takes recognizing that, it's there. You may not, also to recognize that, wait a minute, this could actually be an addiction. Right.
Yes.
And then because planting that seed, sometimes that will sort of start to lead to I need to help myself. I need to get better. I need to fix this. I need to stop this addiction, because I'm not going to go anywhere if I continue with it. So no, I think that's powerful. Definitely. With when you're talking about these things, are there any particular activities or even topics that the students enjoy the most discussing or doing?
I mentioned this is a 2-year program. So the first year, we're really looking at self-development, and how can you understand yourself better? So we do a number of personality assessments with the students that they love, if they have never been exposed to some of that. So they get to know about their own personality, how that relates to others, how they can work better in groups, that conflict management piece. How do they what's their most comfortable conflict management style?
Okay, so that's good.
We help them understand all those various areas, and then they start to understand who they are as a unique person, because they all come with their own strengths and weaknesses, areas that they love, things that they love to do, things that they don't love so much. And really being able to synthesize that into, well, what does this mean for my career choice? What does this mean for the clubs and organizations that I join? How can I contribute in some ways? What are the areas that I want to contribute to and maybe be involved in a club or organization? And what are those things that I maybe need to just not get so involved in because they're not good for me, or, it's not my top interest. And also kind of keeping in mind who's influencing you. We all come with lots of influences from high school and family living and all of that. So what does all of that mean for you now as a college student, and who you are going to become as a future leader? So all of that gets wrapped into, your self-awareness and then awareness of others and how you contribute to becoming a good citizen, a good member of your community, and an excellent leader and person that can be the one who's taking charge in whatever setting you're going to find yourself in the future.
Yeah, you must have a lot of students have like those aha moments.
All the time. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's good. And so with the activities, what do you think the activities are that show, maybe you can give an example or something, but that show the most growth in students? Which ones really help them kind of grow that step further into the adult that they want to become?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we emphasize is learn by doing.
Yeah.
So not only are they getting the theory behind, all these leadership styles and personality types and that sort of thing, but then how does that, when I am working at we have a service learning component to our courses. So when I'm working with a nonprofit or when I'm working with a NGO of some sort, what is it? What do I bring to that organization? How can I help them? And what am I learning from that experience? So I think there's just a lot of growth that happens through that reflection, and being able to then express it back. We do a lot of, excuse me, interview preparation too. So, not only are they reflecting kind of internally for themselves, for the faculty member in essays and things, but also how do you then talk about that in an interview setting? And we give them lots of practice with interviews as well. So they get good about talking about themselves. And like you said, who doesn't love talking about themselves? So, we can really get them to be more reflective and to really kind of integrate everything that they're learning into a good story about themselves.
And just before I ask you about your coaching business, Virginia, I'm curious, is this like something that students have to choose to opt in on? Or is it is it a program that is in most higher educations that you kind of choose to take over the 2 years? Or how does it work?
Yeah, we are actually the only program of its kind in the state of Florida. Now, there are programs that exist around the country that are similar to ours, but we have the academic component, which is unusual, and we have the service learning component, which is considered a high impact practice. But students do need to apply to be part of our program. We accept quite a few of them that apply. I can't say it's too selective in that sense, but what's interesting is people self-select not even to apply. They think, I'm not a leader.
Yes.
I'm not a scholar. Lead scholars, we're not lead mediocre, but they kind of not even apply. So we tend to attract people that are already identify as a leader, that have that service component. Maybe in high school they've been exposed to it, and they want to learn more. We also want to attract the people that are maybe on the fence a little bit. And that's the hard sell because, again, going back to some of that negative thinking, they kind of talk themselves out of it.
Yes, that's actually, that's so true because I interviewed a woman who's also doing leadership. She was running leadership in the high school she was teaching at. She's come out of teaching now to focus completely on leadership. And she was saying in the high schools, the teachers often choose who should be the leaders of the school, right? Like, even though the kids vote, we know that's a popularity vote. But the teachers are often the one choosing. And who do they choose? They choose their higher academics. They choose their students who they know are going to, succeed as leaders or who already have shown leadership skills. But they don't realize, and this is exactly what she said. She's like, there are actually so many other students who possess incredible leadership skills, but they don't know that because no one's ever really told them that. Or they might not be getting the grades that you would find with a leader, right? Or something like that. And I think, that is, to me, it's a huge takeaway from this is that it doesn't matter what anyone has told you. anyone can be a
Yes.
leader. I don't care who you are. I don't care. You can be a leader. 100%. I believe that.
Yes. And I will say people that are maybe naturally shy or reserved or aren't the first to speak up, they're the group that says, I'm not a leader also. And that's not true either. There are many quiet, thoughtful leaders that are leading in amazing ways that aren't, the first person to run to the front of the room and facilitate a discussion on something, but they have important things to say. And to recognize that you can be a leader in different ways is super important. A lot of our students, you see those light bulbs go off because they're like, oh, I guess I am a leader. And I don't have to be up at the front all the time, but I can lead from the middle or contribute in other ways that, make the project move forward. So
you just leading by example, right?
Yes.
Just in your actions. You don't even have to have the loudest voice at all to be a leader. Like you can just lead, by example. Or if you feel you're too quiet, then lead smaller children, and make that your job as a leader, So
Right.
that is, I believe, I'm glad we talked about that. So anyways, like with your coaching business, tell us when did it start? What does it involve? What maybe prompted you to start it? If someone was thinking, I think I should start a coaching business. What's your journey been with that?
Well, I first got introduced to life coaching, probably 5 or 6, maybe, I don't know, 7 years ago now, but I had hired my own life coach to help me with some transitional things that I was dealing with. And one of the things we talked a lot about was integrating personal and professional parts. So I had a lot of things going on in my personal life and my values and being a Catholic, and then how do I represent myself in the professional setting in that way? And so she really helped me a lot with that. And later on, I actually during COVID, when we all had a little bit more time, I was following a number of podcasts, and one of them was one of the life coach gurus out there, and got introduced to a lot of what she was talking about was making so much sense. And then I followed up with Metanoia Catholic, which is teaching Catholics how to become life coaches, and just fell in love with their program and decided to get certified through them. So I've been with my own business now for about a year, just over a year. And my emphasis now that I've, of course, worked in the college setting for so many years and with leadership is I really want to focus in on helping college students succeed in college and grow in their faith. So that's been the emphasis of my business so far. I do group coaching and worked with people one-on-one to help them figure out, how do I integrate my Catholic faith and my values through that into what I'm doing in college with my own roles, and how do I accomplish that after college? So it's been a labor of love so far. I'm still working full time, but this is a part-time business that I'm really enjoying.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And how many students would you say you normally would have in a group?
It can vary. The ideal size would be about 12 to 15. But with I would say 12 to 15 participants. One of the things I found with group counseling or group coaching is that you could have a group of 100, and if you have 10 people participating, the other 90 are going to gain something from the questions and the coaching that they witness with the person who's being coached. So that's one of the powers of group coaching, is that it's scalable. It can be very affordable when you have the larger numbers of people joining the group, and there's always something new that you can gain. So I give a little lesson on, let's say, time management, and then I partner that with the coaching.
Okay, that's fantastic. I definitely agree that when if you hear someone else being coached, but you tend to resonate with it, then it can help those students that are maybe more reticent to speak up, right? So it's very, very powerful. That's so great. Well, I'm sure that is just going to grow from strength to strength. I have no doubts. So tell me, Virginia, if people have any questions for you, where can they find you online?
Yeah. Well, the best place is to go to my website. It's Knots knots-untied.com. Now,
Okay,
I came
cool.
up with that. My business is called Knots Untied Coaching, and
Okay.
it's a nod to Our Lady Untier of Knots, who is Blessed Virgin Mary, one of the images that's available. And so she helps us untie the knots of all the messiness of life.
Okay.
So my business title is related to her, but it's knots-untied.com. And there you will find links to my podcast, which is Catholics on Campus, as well as my Instagram. And then there's information about how to work with me as well. And
Okay.
some free resources too. So
Fantastic. No, we'll put those in the show notes. Absolutely.
thank you.
And I know being in higher education, I'm sure you've got some good book recommendations for us. So what do you recommend, either professionally or personally?
I'm always reading. I wrote down a few to share with you. The
Nice.
Art of Living by Dr. Edward Shree. I just read that last year, and it's an amazing little book. Also, Habits for Holiness by Father Mark Mary Ames. And he is a friar, a brother, but
Mhm.
and also a father, but he has really broken down for young people, like, how do you create these habits for holiness, which is part of what I talk about too. So I love his stuff. The other thing I
Great.
want to recommend is anything by Parker Palmer. He's written, I don't know how many books, many books, but for teachers that are looking for encouragement, there's a classic book called The Courage to Teach: Exploring the Inner Landscape of a Teacher's Life. And
Wow.
in 2017, they came out with the 20th anniversary edition. It's considered a classic. And again, I would recommend any of his books because it's just very inspiring. It really takes you on a deeper journey. Why have you pursued teaching? How can you help your students by showing them the love and support that they need?
That's
Oh, and one
fantastic.
more book. I want to
Yep. Yep.
just I don't want to forget this one. Sacred Wounds. This just came out this past month. This is called Stories of Redemption, Healing, and Growth. And it's a collection of stories by 20 life coaches, and I'm one of
Oh,
them. So I got
that's
to contribute to this.
amazing.
So I love this book. I'm enjoying reading everybody else's stories now that it's actually published. And anybody who's just looking for some inspirational reading, maybe
Yeah.
they've been through some hard times and want to figure out, how can I move through it? Excellent resource. I
Yeah.
highly
And like
recommend it.
getting some tips from like 20 different life coaches. I mean, with,
Yes.
one book,
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And since I focus a lot on mindset, just want to know, what are your strategies for moving from a negative mindset, if you find yourself in a negative mindset, to a positive mindset?
Yeah. Well, one is recognizing you have a negative mindset.
Yep.
Whatever those things are that are going on in your head, write them down, journal about it. I have some great journaling resources if you're, want to know more about that. But I think there's opportunity to kind of pull that apart and figure out, what is slowing you down. And then the other thing is deciding. I kind of talked about this a little bit before, but really deciding what what direction do I want to move in? What in my Catholic perspective, well, where's the Lord taking me? What else can I be doing to grow in virtue, to be closer to the Lord? So what are those things that I can do to move forward in my life, to maybe move away from some of the negative thinking and make a decision and start doing it?
Yeah.
You might fall backwards, you might, but don't beat yourself up about it, but think about, how can I move forward in virtue? And that is going to set you on the path for success, no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. How can I make my light shine in the world, right?
Yes,
Even
absolutely.
brighter. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to yourself as a first year teacher?
Oh gosh, I would say remember to stay student focused, and that your time with the students is precious. That anytime that we have an opportunity to teach others, we ourselves are learning and we're imparting that learning to them. So enjoy the road. There's lots of negative thinking that can fall into the first year of teaching, but I would encourage, just to journal about it, to kind of keep a record of how you're feeling, and not let those feelings slow you down. It's possible to kind of trick your brain into moving around some of the negative self-talk. Your students aren't going to know from year to year, that you didn't do something you wanted to do or any of that. They're just going to remember what you did. So, they will appreciate that about you.
No, absolutely. They won't remember like that day you taught them how to like divide by 3, but they'll remember, right?
Yeah, they're going to remember the day you had cupcakes for their birthday.
Yes, exactly.
How you made them feel. One of the things I love with elementary teachers is they really instill the love of learning in the kids that they're working with. And that is something that's, again, priceless, that they can take with them for the rest of their lives. And by the time they get to college, if we want to instill the love of learning at a completely higher level.
Yeah.
So again, I think there's just tremendous opportunity that you remember your why of why you've chosen to be a teacher, and you will always do really well.
Yeah, that's good advice. And if you do actually journal every day, you'll probably have a best-selling book in 10 years.
Absolutely. I love that.
And last question, what 3 things are you grateful for today?
Awesome. I have to say I'm really grateful for my family and friends. And I'm also grateful for my health. Yeah. I think that's something people take for granted sometimes, and I love that. And I'm also grateful for being on your show today. I really enjoyed this talk, and it's been really great. And I'm just enjoying the opportunity to kind of inspire others. So thank you.
Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much, Virginia. Well, I'm grateful for you for coming on the show today, because I've learned so much, and I think it's so valuable. Like, I think our listeners are I know our listeners are going to love it. And I just really appreciate how you are helping so many students at this valuable time in their life, especially now when a lot of them are not necessarily coming to you with a lot of these skills, that you've got this patience and, strength to help them and be calm and be like, you can do this. It's okay. And, it's such an important time. And I just wish you the most success and prosperity with the coaching business. I know it's going to just thrive. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.